Now we're going to start talking about the actual systems and the details and our thoughts on these systems, starting with Island Sanctuary. So if you're fresh off the boat, if you're watching this as a highlight, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. We love talking MMORPGs, and welcome to the podcast and or channel. Let's talk about Island Sanctuary and how they teased this as a start. Looking at a Mandagora, blue skies, beautiful. Chris, what do you think about Island Sanctuary?
So the first thing they're going to do is they're going to start us off in this area we're not going to unlock for a long time, and they are going to leap off the ledge, and they're going to glide down on their little mount here. It is an absolutely massive area, absolutely massive. You will start your adventures down on a beach. Someone is going to bring you there. We don't know who, and they will say that starting from today, this is your island. So I don't know whose island it was before that, but it is now yours. And you will go through a tutorial. They said that they thought that would take most people about like 2 or 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
So that's plenty to do in addition to MSQ, in addition to the new raids, all with the 0.2 content. 0.25, of course, being massive. So enjoy this. Take your time. It is not meant to be tied to gear progression or anything. This is meant to be chill content.
There's no fights on the island. The island, you have to finish the 6.0 story. That is like the main requirement. So you're not going to just join Final Fantasy and then go play on the island. We'll see if that ever changes. But no battle content on this at all. Everything's fully independent, so no housing items come into this. It's like its own system, and people can visit, which ends up being kind of some of the top questions that we've seen so far.
You move around faster on a mount. Looked like Sprint had a 5-second recast and like a 15-second duration. So it should feel stress-free. You should just be moving around and just enjoying yourself. You've got a little guide here, a little mammoth, and basically as you go through this tutorial, it's going to teach you about the different things you get to do. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to gather. This is not tied to gathering out in the world, and any items you gather will be put into a pouch unique for this content, so it's not going to clutter your inventory. And there are buttons that you can't press right there when they went over that, and you're going to gather all these different items out here. So they're going through that different gathering, and you're going to notice that they ran by some monkeys. We're going to deal with that in a minute.
Yeah.
And once you've gathered a little bit, you're gonna head back to your base, and you're going to make a tool. Once again, not tied to crafters or gatherers here. And as we pick up enough things, eventually you're going to be able to start building things. So they build they have this little plot here, and they're eventually going to be able to build a little hut on it. They showed that hut off. We saw it in some screenshots and in some trailer footage previously. You're going to be able to build that hut, and it'll kind of explain things to you as you go. It's meant to just be something you take at your own pace.
Yeah, and you level up this island rank so that as you do these things, as you're leveling up and clearing spaces and making buildings, you're kind of ranking yourself up, which gives off various rewards for the island itself. And like honestly, like it just sounds like a really interesting piece of cozy content. But at the same time, I was still even seeing people in chat talking about how like, oh, they thought it might have been something different, or and that, I mean, there's just nothing you can really do. Like expectations are going to be what they are. I hope people check it out, and I'm really going to be curious to see what they think about it, because it is something so very different to the overall experience. And they said there's obviously unique gear. You can get a shovel. For those of you who want to
look at that Roth wearing that hat.
Roth hat. Very Snow-esque from Final Fantasy 13.
Gender locked here.
Nothing's gender locked here at all. And then just goes into actually like capturing animals, capturing monkeys, breeding, or having you turn them into the feeder and having them make more for you as well. Planting and harvesting crops. This is just something that like they spent a lot of time on it. Was there anything that we have not covered in terms of the experience so far?
I think lore-wise, I'm going to run into some interesting ethical dilemmas, just like I did with chocobo breeding. I think there's some weird descriptions when they talk about harvesting. Just go capture that animal and it's yours, and then making more animals so that you can like harvest from them. And I don't know what you harvest from a monkey. So I think there's some weird stuff there. But you're going to be basically developing this island. So you're going to be chopping down these trees and getting more plots and making more stuff,
you can nickname the monkeys. You can give them names. You can It really feels like a massively fledged out system. So like
You'll be able to
overall,
have 40 of your minions roaming around. So
yeah.
those of you that don't have enough minions, by the way, just as a shout out, come stop by stream this week. This upcoming week, we're going to be doing an event,
An event is
minion
going
related.
down, minion related. So just be aware, lock it in. Hopefully we'll see you over on the Twitch. Anyway, island sanctuary activities basically is gather, plant, care for the animals. You can landscape, you can build facilities, and you can sell handicrafts. And ultimately, you can release minions, earn rewards, and explore the wilds. That's essentially kind of the deck pitch for Island Sanctuary. And personally speaking, I think what they showed off looks beautiful. I don't know where it's going to fall in my worldview, right? Like in terms of like, I don't. It could be content. There's content in 14 that surprises me in a way that I'm like, oh, I really enjoy this, and that's like I wasn't expecting to. So I don't know if I'm going to resonate, and I'll let you guys know my thoughts on Island Sanctuary. Obviously, after I go hands on with it. But right now, I'm going to tell you, like, it just doesn't seem like something that's up my alley, but it's never been anything like that. I was like, oh, that's the thing that I've been waiting for. Not saying you have to like it or you have to agree with me on that by all means. If this is your content, that's great. I hope that I'm surprised by it, but overall, like, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm definitely going to jump into it, but I don't feel like it's going to be the reason why I stay subbed, right? Like, and that's kind of how I view it. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think it's, on that end, from like the highest, hardest content, DSU being the hardest fight they've ever added to the game, all the way down to we really just want you to feel relaxed in here. I appreciate the amount of a spectrum. I don't always want to be locked in at one of those difficulty levels. So I love the ability to jump around. So I'm excited about the fact that it seems like they want to draw us into doing Savage while it's relatively new, and then they seem to want to draw us into doing whatever the opposite of Savage is. So I like that.
Baby, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm always for more content, more player choice.
All right.
Always.
So let's talk about variant dungeons. This is one part of 3 out of what was originally said Criterion dungeons. This is your Guild Wars 2 Fractal or World of Warcraft Mythic Plus style system. And it's got 3 difficulties here. And so the first difficulty we're going to go over is called variant. Variant dungeons are casual play for anywhere between 1 and 4 players. You match in, so you match right in, and when you match in with those other players, it seems like you're going to be in 4-person parties. No role restrictions, job changes permitted, and the enemy's strength will be determined by party size. The route of progression is going to change based on player choices. They'll show us some gameplay about that in a bit. The first variant dungeon is going to be the Sylbean Subterrane. This is going to launch in patch 6.25. It does seem like we're going to get an additional variant dungeon, possibly in 6.4 and 6.5, based on the February roadmap when they went over this. And we'll be exploring the depths alongside a certain someone. This is an old slide. They're about to tell us who the someone is. And the experience for your story will change based on the paths you choose. So you'll need to play through multiple times to get all the choices. So it feels very much like the Mario Party, like choose the little rafting one in that.
I'm highlighting the image for those of you in the audio version where basically you have 12 different possible endings to explore and discover. And so I think that's absolutely thrilling. And then in terms of like the skills and how you can take, you get 2 additional skills. They have 5 skills and they qualify whether you can take it as a tank, healer, or DPS. So the role piece still comes in. You can change jobs. You can do all this stuff. And then you get these 2 additional skills to kind of help round it out, because you can go in with variant anywhere from 1 to 4 players. So you don't have to go in with 4. You want to go and try and solo this stuff? Let me know. I'm excited to watch that. Freaking sure.
Now, these abilities are all called variant as the first word in their name. So you've got a variant heal, a variant provoke, a variant resurrection, a variant damage ability, and then a variant rampart being the tank protection there. And they're called variant, which is different than Criterion.
Or different than Red Mage's variant, but the coder in me is var. I'm like, oh yeah, like it's just a var. Like we'll determine what it is later. Variable variant in that regard.
So we will be questing with Nanimo. So that's what we'll be doing. And as we go around there, you'll see different story fragments. And they showed us an initial cutscene of this. It looks absolutely stunning. You'll be able to go in as 2 people. You could go in as a full party. You could go in alone. Lots of options. Feels very much like a deep dungeon type experience. You could go in with random people. You can go in by yourself. Whatever you want to do. If you have more than one player, the amount of players standing on a tile when you get to choose your path will determine. We don't know how they handle tie breaks and what happens if you don't want to. And Nanamo is going to suggest a direction. She'll change it up from time to time, but you don't have to go that direction. And she's going to be talking to you. She's going to be talking a lot. So this is very much like a trust experience. So he goes through this with Nanamo and gets hit a little bit so he can experience the thrill. And he doesn't open any of the loot boxes. So we don't know what the loot coming from here is going to be. He saved that as a surprise. And eventually you will get to a boss. One of the routes is only going to have 2 bosses, as opposed, so it's not like a dungeon. So each route will just have 2 bosses. And so it seems like 12. So there's like, I guess, I don't know how they're doing that. It looks like we've got a lot of choices. So it looks like there was like 12 outcomes altogether. 2 bosses per attempt.
On the bosses is that they're not all going to be purely unique. You might see reskins, or you might see just like the same model, but it could change the mechanics depending on the route that you take. So I think that's really interesting because that's going to add that variety. I don't need them to make like a boss for each whatever, pathway, because I think that ultimately then kind of says, hey, okay, like this is the way I want to go. Some people might not ever see a boss. Obviously you can go in solo. But I think that's going to be, I was like, wow, it makes sense. New mechanics, different mechanics. That's exactly, I think, what people will end up defaulting into anyway. And they kind of show off the boss and the mechanics itself. And then they show off this really cool looking mount, which I think we're calling kind of Space Hamster or something of that nature. Like yeah. It's like, and the tail makes it fly. This is a boss. This is from the trailer as well. But I think I don't know if this is a boss as a part of Criterion only, or if we just didn't obviously see it as a part of the variant path that he took in this regards. So go ahead.
Second part, Criterion. So now we've moved beyond variant. We've moved into Criterion. This is 4-player content. And we'll be back to the traditional 1 tank, 1 healer, 2 DPS. Visually,
for matchmaking.
Very similar.
Right. For matchmaking, that's where the roles come in. You can form a pre-made and go in all tanks, or, like that. So if you got a pre-made, you do however you want. But if you're matchmaking, it will do the tank, healer, DPS.
So this is going to be the Sildine subterrane. It's actually called another Sildine subterrane. So it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
It's a different
somehow further Hildebrand.
Yeah. And this is going to allow us to have, if you go in with less than 4 people, you'll be supplemented via matchmaking. Normal method of resurrections are prohibited, so no need for a red mage or anything like that, feeling like that. But each player will be granted a limited use of variant raise 2. This is different than that, and all other variant actions not available here. Every time, if you guys wipe, the enemies will stay dead, and you'll push through this. Now we go into the 3rd difficulty, Criterion Dungeon Savage. This is another Sildine subterranean Savage. And you will go in only preformed, and we will not even have the base resurrection. If you die, all the enemies come back, and if you take too long, the enemies start getting stronger. So this will all be located in a new dungeon finder screen called the Special Dungeon Finder. And remember, you can only enter Savage as a preformed party.
So on this note, though, when it comes to the difficulty in terms of scale, they are thinking, and at least they communicated, that this would be designed and really good to take in your Savage gear from the current Savage, the new one, the 5.2 one, Abyssos, into this content. So it's like, hey, you've done Savage. Hey, why don't you try another version of Savage that's a little bit different? So that's kind of, it seems like that's how they're scaling it, which in the long term might make this stuff easier down the road. But in the short term, like, this seems like, oh, cool. This gives you more options to do this kind of content if you're looking for challenging content as well.
They did say you cannot ignore the bosses. You'll have to beat all of them to get the boss to appear. So I know that the way like the Fractal and the Mythic Plus system handle trash kind of varies. So you'll need to, but the trash, you'll need to think about what order you pull things in, because certain overlapping mechanics might wipe you. He, of course, just went in as God mode, so we didn't get to see any of that. And he just kind of wrecked things. But he expects this to be a lot stronger. He does think the boss fights will be shorter than 8-man fights, so that they'll be fast-paced and really, really fun.
Yeah. This looks like a lot of fun content. Absolutely. And in terms of like, you can actually re-earn your raise. That's going to happen after you defeat all the enemies that are like, spawned, etc. So it's like, okay, like we use that, and it made me kind of think back to some of the harder stuff in Destiny, where it's like, okay, you get one, and then if you use it, then you got to try again after that. I think for me, when I look at this live letter, the big takeaways are like, I was really happy to see Island Sanctuary. I'm glad that people don't have to wait much longer for it. I'm very curious to see what the internet's total reaction to it here in the coming weeks. I think anybody that would be in the raiding mindset and the savage mindset actually is getting more content than they have in the past, where you get the savage raid. It's alongside cozy, Island Sanctuary. So there's kind of like, if you're not big into the savage raid scene, you got this option as well. So it feels like it's addressing like a wider, range of content. And then if you're like, well, why don't we get harder things and more raids rather than this Island Sanctuary? Well, good news. We actually have that in this patch too, and then after a couple of weeks, like sometime in October, boom, now you're into the Savage Dungeon. So it does feel like, I would say that 6.2 for me feels like an incredible meaty offering for both casual and hardcore players, to where that if I hear somebody not memeing, not doing this just because they hear me say this now, but legitimately feeling like they're being screwed out of content with their sub with 6.2 and 6.25, I'm just not going to understand where they're coming from. I'm going to feel like that person's on another planet, from another planet, and be like, what do you mean? If you don't like the savage version, of the dungeon, guess what? There's the variant version, and you could set your own difficulty in variant. You want to solo it versus you want to duo it versus, you get to define that level of difficulty and challenge for yourself. And they also have this other cool thing too. If you're looking for more of that challenge right after the challenge that you just completed, while you wait for the next ultimate, which is apparently coming pretty soon too. Like, I just feel like we're just getting a lot of content, which is exciting for me personally.
I think Criterion's the thing I'm most excited about over the next 4 months. I think that there's a lot of things to do along the way. I want to engage with a little bit of everything. And so I feel like, I've done a lot of the base 6.0 stuff, not all of it. I've done a lot of the 6.1 stuff, not all of it. Mm-hmm. And this just says like, hey, you don't have to consume everything in this game. You can get to the parts of the game that you like. And once you get to the parts you like, there's probably more on the way. So I think it's nice that they're letting you don't have to eat the whole buffet to be satisfied. You can go through and just pick all your favorite dishes, and there's enough meat on the bone there. So with that, I'm pumped.
Yeah,
I'm pumped.
This is great. This is a really good amount of information. So we'd love to know what you guys are thinking. Chris, are you planning on streaming after this, or are you just?
I gotta do another summary after this, and then I'm gonna call it a day. I had a lot. I completed Heavensward for my first time this week, so I've done a lot this week. And then Brian you're doing a charity stream, New World Fishing Tournament tonight.
Yeah.
Any upcoming kind of bonus streams, such as the fact that we just crossed our subscriber goal, are all brought to you by something. So they're either brought to you by you guys hitting a goal that just blows me away, or direct sponsors. So we're doing a lot of bonus streams lately. Mm-hmm. And that's letting me get to content that I don't get to in all of the kind of more scheduled stuff Monday through Thursday when I'm being a little bit more organized. So we have kind of goals each stream to work through, and that's been really great.
Yeah, my thought is because I have a couple single player games that I haven't started or that I do want to finish. And so if you guys are helping, with that support, that's something I can take to Julie, and she can approve me to do some additional live streams of that. So my thought is that now that we've hit our goal, so Chris is going to do a thank you stream. I'm going to open up a poll and let you guys pick whether I jump into Final Fantasy VII R, finish Elden Ring, jump into Spider-Man or something like that. As kind of like my additional bonus streams, which won't be as long. Typically it's like, okay, we'll jump in on that. So thank you guys so much for that support. We really can't, do this much content without what you guys, support us, because that's why you get more, so more support gets more content. And so we thank you guys for that. So kind of be thinking about it. I'll put out a poll in terms of what you guys want, and then we can kind of try to find that time that works. It's it's going to be something where it's like, this is because of that support And we'll try to, hopefully maybe I'll actually start finishing some single player games. Who knows? Who knows? All right, that's gonna wrap up this. That's gonna wrap up this stream. That's gonna wrap up the summary, because Chris is gonna be live over on Twitch. If you guys aren't following over there, please do. He said, I'll be live tonight doing the charity stuff. And yeah, I appreciate you guys all being here for Work to Game, for Ginger Prime, for Gaming Kinda. We thank you guys so much for that, and we will see you next time. Until then,
take care.
Sorry, I was slow on the until then. I was like, my brain's still kind of feeling like it's waking up.